Thank you, Tim. My name's Paul Adam. I'm a 2011 Nuffield Scholar. My study topic was cost efficiencies in no-till cropping systems. First of all, I'd like to thank my sponsor, Macquarie Agricultural Funds Management, for their ongoing support of the Nuffield program and allowing scholars like myself to travel and experience the world in the way we have. I come from Tottenham, as Tim said, right in the centre of New South Wales. It's right on the western fringe of the cropping belt and nearly on the cut-off between north and south winter rainfall. There we crop 2,000 hectares annually in a no-till continuous cropping system, practising controlled traffic. We do raise a few legumes in our system as part of our rotation. One of our biggest focuses within our system is trying to reduce our costs due to our risk exposure on an annual basis. So cost efficiencies in no-till cropping systems. I headed off around the world really trying to chase what was going to be our next big game and where we were going to be able to progress our system and see where it could really take us to another level. It was pretty early into my studies that I soon realised, after speaking to a lot of farmers overseas, that most of the response and reply I was getting was that, what are you doing here? You guys are the most efficient at what you do anyway. So I guess I really, from that moment on, had to change my focus just slightly. So I really started to look at what was driving the levels of capitalisation in machinery I was seeing overseas. Why were these guys doing things the way they were, and why did they have so much more machinery than what we had? I also wanted to understand why their farming systems hadn't progressed to the same degree we had in Australia. I was also really keen to assess the load-carrying tractor variants that were available overseas to see whether they gave us the potential to progress our system further and we down the lines of being able to take our system to a really true one-pass system by applying herbicide and doing a herbicide application at the same time as our seeding. I also want to search for any belts that could fit into our farming system to hopefully improve our profitability. So with the help of a 1982 UK scholar who I believe is here, James Nelstrop, I actually went to JIC, a research facility in John Innes Research Centre in the UK. I looked at some efficient cropping and what was going on in the breeding lines and technology lines as far as development of more efficient cropping systems. And at JIC they're using a small weed called Arabidosis. They've actually mapped the genome of Arabidosis. And interestingly, it shares a lot of the same genes as a lot of our common crop varieties. Through the use of gene marker technology, they're actually able to express some of the beneficial genes within those crop types and just to speed up the breeding processes. And some of these beneficial traits will be frost tolerance, fertiliser efficiency, and even cereal varieties that are able to fix nitrogen in a similar way to legumes. It was all very interesting, but at the moment they're just not quite there yet. So machinery was really one of my key passions, and wanting to see it, for our farming system, it had been a major progression in our efficiency levels, and it all comes through adaptation and change of machinery. So it was something I was really keen to look at. So these are the key things that I found during my travels that I thought really impacted on the levels of machinery that farmers were using. So there was timeliness of application, a labour market, crop rotations, soil constraints, margin of production and competition between growers were all areas that I actually thought really influenced the levels of capitalisation on farms. So the timeliness of application. And most of this was due to adverse weather conditions. Canada was an absolute prime example where this photo was taken. Due to their basically 100-day growing season, they get a very narrow window of opportunity. And the effect on the yield potential from missing that opportunity is very dramatic. So hence the scale of the machinery and the efficiency they try to achieve out of very few people. This is a photo I actually took in Brazil on our Global Focus. And as you can see, Brazil's labour market is much more readily available than ours. This guy is fitted with safety equipment. There's a motorbike helmet there. Corn cobs from there. And you can actually see there's the tail end of a John Deere forage harvester which has been modified there to harvest those corn cobs. We're flat in Australia to get somebody to sit up there in the air conditioning, let alone get in there. I think the Brazilian model was very interesting. They, due to their low labour costs, their efficiency model is to scale out, have models of machinery, lots of smaller units, rather than our model as what you'd see in North America as well, bigger, more efficient units. Crop rotations, I found really opened up a can of worms. The machinery seemed to be so specialist, and every rotation or specialist crop type that was thrown in nearly always threw in a massive amount of machinery to go with it. It was interesting talking to a UK scholar and who studied actually controlled traffic as part of his studies. And the one thing he was looking at the moment was basically altering his rotation due to one segment of it controlling the rest of his rotation. In his case it was sugar beets, and if he dumped sugar beet out of his rotation he could probably make his system much more efficient than it already was. There just seemed to be so much specialist machinery sitting in the back of a shed for most of the year. I put this slide in not to bash European farmers the way they bash their soil, but to really highlight the issue that was further on. Their biggest issue as far as soil constraint was soil compaction. And their means to alleviate it was ploughing. And it's nearly a practice that a lot of Australia's given up 50 years ago. But the levels, the issue they were trying to alleviate or repair was an issue they created much earlier in the season in their cropping program. And by not controlling their traffic, they were left with very few options, and hence from then on there was a flow-on effect. The amount of machinery they needed then to rectify that issue and to follow through was massive. Not to mention the fuel consumption that followed with all of that. Marginal production. That's a photo I took in North Dakota, out on the western fringe of the cropping belt in North Dakota. And everywhere I experience in the world, wherever I travel, the more marginal the production area, the greater the scale of the machinery, the greater the operating scale, and more efficient the whole system seemed to be. And it really became clear that risk seemed to be a key driver in efficiency. And the greater risk exposure, the greater the efficiency. Competition between growers. I could have taken this photo of any farmer anywhere in the world. Instead I took it of my son Robert, and he's just as proud of his machinery fleet as they are of theirs. I found it very interesting. As farmers we are often very critical of our city cousins and the consumerism that they partake in, but yet we're just as guilty as farmers of the same thing. A lot of the time the purchases we often see in a lot of these big machinery sheds, often have never had an efficiency gain attached to them, and it is more out of want than actual need. Alternate tractor designs. I wanted to really try and push the system as far as I possibly could. And just for the benefit of the grain growers in the room, yes, that is a stinking dairy in the background. So I looked at a few of these load-carrying tractor variants. One of them was multi-drive. It was built in Birdlick in the UK. I visited the factory up at Gloucestershire, in Birdlick, and spoke to the designers and that. They're actually using these things to pull machinery as well as use it as more spray-based machine. As our system has evolved, our cropping system, basic tractor design really hasn't progressed with our system. And I saw that as a bit of a flaw. Our main focus in most of our cropping systems is now around spraying, and I still wanted to get the absolute capacity out of a machine and wanted it to reflect what I actually did with it now. And I didn't want to actually go down the path of multiples of machinery. So hence the focus of trying to rationalise and put it into one package. I think the concept of the multi-drive was very good. It basically had everything I wanted it to do. It could be spaced to 3 metres, it could still pull an implement, but sadly it was just too small for what we were looking for in Australian conditions. At 12 metre systems, that tractor certainly wouldn't cope with. So then it was off to Germany, where I looked at Class Sirion saddle track. It was one of the most innovative designs that I'd ever come across. It was built in Haaswinkel in Germany. It was actually Helmut Klass's pet project. It took 30 years to get that to a production system, full production tractor. It gave us the ability to be able to spray, carry large volumes of liquid, and still seed it at one time. This one's actually set up for seeding. There's a canola bin on the front there. That's actually a suction pump. And you can see the implement at the back here. But there's 15 cubic metres of liquid in the back of that tractor. I spent quite a bit of time looking at slurry application systems and how these guys were actually incorporating the slurry and being able to carry such large loads and quantities. This tractor really was what I was looking for. The only difficulty was getting the tyres out to 3 metres. Our whole system is built around 3 metres. And it really was when I got to Class and actually spoke to the head of production for Class that it became apparent this tractor wouldn't even do it. Just to get the spacing out to 3 metres, the sheer load we would place on the axles and the bearings and the whole wheel gear system was just going to be too immense to be able to handle those loads. They assured me it could do it, but for how long was still a bit of an unknown. So I still didn't actually find what I was looking for. Then I came across this tractor in the Netherlands. You probably can't see the designation on it properly. It's 9XX. It was the most efficient tractor I've seen in all my travels. It was vastly more efficient than cost efficient than what we were operating at home. This Dutch farmer was given this tractor by Class. His obligation to the deal is he has to put fuel in it and drive it. All repairs and maintenance are covered by Class, and as you can see, the capital outlay initially was borne by Class too. So he had a pretty good deal, vastly better than what most grain growers are exposed to. It was during the Netherlands leg of my journey that I also discovered a package called weather derivatives. And up until this point I've been really focused on reducing my costs as a form of risk mitigation. Our exposure to our variable climate on poor seasons on a regular basis, it really forced me to trim our operation to a really efficient point at the moment. Where I saw weather derivatives as being beneficial was that whilst we couldn't take risk production insurance in Australia, weather derivatives did offer us the potential to insure against that production risk by actually taking insurance against the weather. Now these weather derivatives operate by actually being able to take an insurance against any form of weather that can be measured at a local bureau site. So you actually set the deficiency of rainfall, the price per millimetre on a deficiency of rainfall, and then the cutting price of the average, and that directly does impact on the price of the premium. But it really, I saw it as an opportunity to be able to hedge a lot of our risk that we generally have no way of getting around. So my recommendations to the industry. I still think research and technology are the key to our future productivity gains. They hold there's a lot of potential there. Imagine cereal varieties that can fix their own nitrogen and even better fertiliser efficiency would make massive gains to our costs. No-till farmers need to engage more with the machinery manufacturing sector to get machinery that is built to our needs. Currently, most of the machinery manufacturers are focused purely on the whole market, and we're just such a small segment of the market at the moment that they're really not specifically focused on us. I think that will change as adoption of our practices increase, and I really think that in the future we will get a lot better machinery once the market gets there. But the more we engage and the more we speak to the machinery manufacturers about our needs, I think that we can hopefully speed that process up. I also think the ability to increase economies of scale as new technology becomes available are as important as ever. And it was something I'd seen in the Netherlands that probably really made me focus on that. These guys had, there was the potential for them to increase their efficiency, but they were locked into such small land areas, or even the shape of the field with a border, or in the UK the same with hedgerows. They weren't able to capture the full efficiency gain out of that machinery because they were locked into that smaller scale. Cost efficiency, I also felt, need not be the major risk of risk mitigation available to farmers. Packages like weather derivatives and hopefully future packages will allow us to hedge a bit more of that risk, so we take out some of the real sharp nasty bites on our margins. So just to finish, I'd really like to thank Nuffield Australia for their support of us as scholars and giving us the opportunity to travel and see what we see. It's an amazing experience, and it's been an absolute eye-opener for me. And I'd also really like to thank Macquarie Bank for their ongoing support of the program. It's without sponsors that, without them, we don't get the opportunity to do that or experience it. I'd also like to thank my Global Focus group, and we are missing one who wasn't here today, is Rob. And the experience of travelling with these guys was absolutely amazing, and what a great bunch of people. And I'd also like to thank the most special people in my lives, my wife Meg, Robert, Caitlin and Bree, for their support all the way through. So thank you.
Thanks, Paul. That was excellent, and I can see that you're already starting to think about your succession planning there. That was fascinating. It's a subject, as I said, dear to the hearts of many farmers, the machinery. And as chairman, I have first choice or first chance for a question. So I'd like to ask you, how do we know when big is big enough?
I don't know what we're talking about there. Yeah. No, I think a lot of farmers get carried away with this idea. Probably our last big efficiency gain wasn't by getting bigger. It was actually, we took a step backwards. We rationalised and went away. We had, in our system, we had probably 5 years ago, we probably took the decision to rationalise and go back the other way. We actually used to operate a 62-foot flexi-coil. We operate a 40-foot machine now. Our fuel consumption dropped by 2/3 out of that whole process. We actually got better usage out of our machinery by not having it specifically tied up for that purpose. And I think it's a combination of all. You've got to look at all options and see where you can make the most money and what you can get the best use out of, Tim. I just, you know, not always big is better. It's got to be able to pay for itself too.